everybody. Welcome back to the Be That Lawyer with Fretzin podcast. We are rocking and a rolling every single week, twice a week, bringing you great guests, great content, things to help you live that best lawyer's life. Unfortunately, today we've got a terrible guest. He's probably the worst guest I've ever had on. No, I'm just kidding. It's Rob Hanna, everybody. I love Rob Hanna. He's one of my favorite people. I'm obviously goofing, starting off in a silly way this morning. But how's it going, Rob?
Well, Steve, it's an absolute honor to be a returned guest on your
Yes.
show. And yeah, I think you're an amazing podcaster. I know you and I share lots of shared visions in this space, and I just admire what you're doing and the community you've built and everything you've done. So it's a pleasure to catch up again with you over the mics.
Well, I'm just trying to follow in your footsteps, man. You're the podcast master and the community building master. So I'm just dragging behind you trying to keep up. But I think when we get together though, we're always smiling, we're always having a great conversation. We're talking about our favorite Reds Premier League team, Liverpool, and just continually trying to, I think you're just such an innovator in the space. And so let's start off with our quote of the show. I've heard this before many times, and I would love for my teenager to have this on a t-shirt or something and follow it, but he's not going to. The magic you are looking for is in the work you are avoiding. Boy, does that scream business development or what?
Yeah, it's so hard hitting, and I remember when I heard it first from a mentor, I took a double check, and then actually, like you say, you think you really kind of dwell on those words, and you think actually, if you just took one extra action from that thing you're putting away,
Yeah,
avoiding, particularly
yeah.
from a business development perspective, it could just be writing down something to then take the next step to whatever it be. But yeah, it really hit home for me, and so yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it and shared it with your community too.
But like when we talk about, how difficult it is to build, and we will talk about how difficult and challenging it is to build a community and to run a successful podcast and all these things, that's, that's hard. And so when things are hard,
Mm.
people avoid it. People avoid losing weight, people avoid stop drinking, people avoid, I mean, there's a lot of things that we avoid because they're hard. And unfortunately, that's sort of the key to life and success is you got to get through the hard stuff and then, life gets easier. You have to work that up the hill and you get to walk down the hill. It's pretty straightforward. Um, Hey, everybody. So, Rob Hanna is the founder and CEO of KC Partners. He and I have been buddies for what, a couple of years now, at least 2, 3, 4 years.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're always sharing contacts or insights, and yeah, just a really nice collaborative kind of relationship we've got, and I really enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we're going to have a really engaging conversation today, but let's take a step back, Rob, and just give everybody a little bit of insight about your background and the business you're in, but then also kind of like how because you're one of the few people that has spun it off into something much greater than just the job that you perform.
Yeah, so very, very briefly, I come from a legal family. So my whole reason why I'm in the legal family world, similar to you, Steve, is my grandfather was a lawyer. So I started my career in the city of London over here in the UK, in the business district, in the recruiting world. I earned my stripes for various years, and then ultimately went to a boutique company, helped scale that, and then I thought I wanted to use the skills that I've acquired in that industry to then set up my own legal headhunting business. So that's really what happened. And I realized very quickly that it was super competitive. There were lots of competitors out there. So I knew I needed to have an innovative, different strategy. So that was when I started thinking very early, 2019. And we were the first legal recruitment firm in the world to launch a podcast. And so, that was a great way to build thought leadership, produce content, utilize social where certain people were behind. Back to that quote, the magic you're looking for is the work you're avoiding. It would be very easy to try and imitate what the competitors were doing and do the same thing, but with years behind, or try and do something new, different, break down some doors, try a different way. That was really kind of my approach. And then fast forward to today. As you know, we're sponsored by the world's largest $3 billion legal tech company in Clio. I've also moved into the events world. I host an event called the Great Big Legal Offsite, which again has spun off the back of the Legally Speaking podcast, which is all around providing small to mid-sized law firms future-proofing their law firm strategies. I invest in legal tech businesses, so I sit on the board of some exciting, innovative AI legal tech-focused businesses, and of course, I help people with their career transitions as well. And I take a real passion for that. And I say we don't place somebody in a job once; we place them throughout their career. So we're all
Yeah.
about helping them throughout their journey. And it's all for me to leave a legacy that my grandfather first started in the 1950s to build this kind of kind, collaborative, thriving legal community.
Yeah. And this is a little off topic, but I'm always curious. I mean, the unemployment rate for lawyers in the US is at an all-time low. I mean, if you want to work and you're a lawyer, you're working. Is it the same in the UK right now?
Yeah, there's really good demand for we went through cycles. So there was a bit of a cycle of low corporate activity. Now corporate lawyers are becoming very hot in demand over here. Yeah, I mean, there's always for good quality legal talent, there's always going to be a home for you. But the exciting thing since I started up, it doesn't just have to be the typical route. You can go into legal project management. You can go into legal technology. You can go into legal design. You can go into all of these things, or maybe you want to transition into different areas. So there's so many different career paths now as legal industry evolves, where actually people can go if they don't necessarily just want to stay and become a partner and have their own firm. But I would love to see more people kind of becoming partners, building those big practices, and making those firms. And I know you do a great job of helping people get those ones off the ground
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, we got to, I mean, the lawyers that are listening to this show know the importance of a book of business. They know how portable that makes them and how they can laterally do what they want to do. They can go off on their own. They've got all these options, and the lawyers with their head down. And again, I know building business isn't for everybody, but putting your head down and just getting the work done and not developing the relationships, developing the business, that might be okay for now, but in 2, 3, 5, 10 years, that's going to be concerning for some people, as it has been for people that come to me in their 50s and in early 60s and say, hey, you know what, and the work has stopped and the flow has stopped, and what do I do? um, but that's actually not our topic today. Our topic today is really about podcasting and community building, and the importance of that. And again, there's a lot of different ways to build a brand and build a business. And but let's start off with the story of how you got into podcasting, because that's one of your biggest ways of how you've built your community and how you build your brand. So talk about how you got started.
Yeah, so it really was a long-term business development strategy. So as I referenced before, I didn't have any contacts in legal when I set up my own legal recruitment business. I didn't really know many people, so I needed a way to have outreach, but I didn't want to reach out to people and say, and you'll know, Steve, right? You should always lead with a value when you're trying to start a relationship with someone. Think about what's going to be in it for them, not just necessarily you. So I didn't think I could reach out to them and say, hey, you've never heard of me. You already use all these other people, but would you like to do some business with me and let me hire for you? The likelihood of that happening would have been a very low response rate. So what I did was I thought, right, well, how can I add value to these partners in law firms? How can I add value to the decision makers who potentially will be my future clients? And that's where I was like, right, podcast is growing. I think a lot of law firms are doing outdated marketing strategies or writing articles that aren't even SEO compliant, that don't necessarily get the visibility that the time invested in them actually achieves. And so I thought, why don't I pick up the phone and actually reach out to these people and say, hey, would you like to feature on a podcast? And bear in mind, 2019, Steve, these weren't as novel. These weren't as much as actually, we weren't even, these were all in person back then. This wasn't the age of COVID and Zooms and
Yeah,
people hopping on and
yeah,
doing everything. This was an experience. You're invited to my office in a studio type environment to sit over a microphone. That's all well and good, but what's in it for them? Well, we're going to share this episode in 5,000 cities around the world because podcasts are consumed globally, as you'll know, when you put it onto Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever it may be. We're going to repurpose this content. So you give us 1 hour of your time. We'll turn this into multi-asset. So we'll turn this into a video. We'll turn this into an article. We'll turn this into a blog. What's, again, beneficial to you? It's actually going to be better than you sending boring, outdated job specs. We'll actually help you craft something that's going to be meaningful. So when you're looking to attract and retain talent, people know about your story, but this is also going to help you get people through the front door. And we're going to give you a really good, solid experience. And we'll also ensure we share the embed code so you can put this on your own firm profile, and you can get this super enhanced social media strategy where we release everything. We'll tag you. We'll ensure that you get increased number of followers, engagement, leads, brands, all of these things. So it's very hard for them to say, go away. It was a pretty easy yes from them, the way
yeah.
I pitched it. And then I get into their system, I get into their community, I give nothing but value, and they figure it out. It's like this shows, and this is the key strategic point that I would make. Every podcast, in my opinion, should have a topic of influence, a TOI. And our TOI is legal careers, right? It should be 1 or 2 words. When you put into Google, what is the pain point your podcast is trying to serve? Or whatever you're trying to do, what do you want to be known for? And it should be no more than 1 or 2 words. So my topic of influence, legal careers, that's a great hook on the end because that's what I'm doing. I'm helping people with their legal career transitions and moves. So it was really easy to kind of connect the Legally Speaking podcast to my mothership company in the end, to then start start getting business off the back of it, but I led with value to start with, and that's really how it grew. And then obviously, as you know, Steve, if you're consistent, persistent, and you really have a goal and a drive and a passion behind something, things grow and snowball. And then we
Yeah.
started picking up sponsorships. Then we started picking up, really kind of good brand ambassador opportunities, and all these different things come from it. And then you start thinking this can be a community. This can build and build and build and be bigger than actually just a business development tool.
And I feel like community and influencers and all the things that are going on in the last, I mean, maybe more in the last 5 years than in any time in history. It's become such a big deal to be at the top of that pyramid with all your followers and all the people under you that support you in what you're doing and that you're providing value to that community. Are there specific either mistakes you've made or things that geez, if I could have done that again, I would have done it differently?
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of mistakes, and even today, we're still learning and tweaking. Things that we did originally on just podcasting. If people are thinking about a podcast, we were putting the wrong titles on our episodes. So, a title of an episode is precious digital real estate. So you want to make sure that you're not just putting like Legally Speaking Podcast episode number 1, because nobody's Googling that. So we kind of understood. And this is when you start getting into things, you've got to get into the 1 or 2% minutiae details. And similarly now we've just gone through a whole new rebrand. I'm wearing our new Legally Speaking Podcast rebrand. We were doing all our YouTube wrong, right? So we were again putting the wrong thumbnails out on YouTube, because we were actually needed to realize, again, it's precious digital real estate we're missing. We just needed to put the quote and the visual and the key message as the thumbnail, and then the name of the guest and what it's about in the subtext. So you're always learning. There's mistakes, there's things you can be doing, the format of the show. Again, we weren't keeping up with the times, and that's really important. You can't stay still. So we were we weren't putting trailers on the front end, which is actually a big trend right now with podcasting. So there's lots of mistakes, and sometimes trying to go for guests, and actually it probably wasn't the right guest at that particular time. But you fine tune, you understand what your message is trying to be, you keep moving forwards, you build audience. The key point. Lots of people think they're building community, but a lot of people just want audience, right? And the
Mm.
difference is, in my opinion, to an audience and a community is you genuinely give them value and you engage and you make them feel seen and heard. Otherwise, it's just an audience. And what brands want, they don't necessarily want the biggest community, but they want an engaged community, or they want to understand that people in your community really look up to you, trust you, the thought leadership and content you're providing is genuinely valuable. Rather than, hey, I've got 1 billion followers, anyone follows me, and I've got an audience. So the real key difference, in my opinion, is actually a community that is engaged, that values, that interacts, shares feedback, all part of that, and has a voice, and actually make them feel seen and heard. And they're the types of people who are going to give you the referrals, Steve, like, they're the sort of people who are going to champion you. They're the sort of people that are going to organically, through word of mouth, socials, help you grow.
Yeah. And I love that. And I love the difference between audience and community. And look, I don't have the biggest community or audience because business development isn't for everybody. If I wanted to put something together that was for every lawyer in the country or in the world, that's going to be a very different show. Having a show about growing and living, growing a practice and living your best lawyer's life, I'm happier with a smaller subset of that community that I can add value for and that gets it. And I mean, I'm getting emails on a fairly regular basis. Hey, love your podcast. I need a coach. Let's talk. Or I just love your podcast. Keep it up. Like things like that. But are there things that you're doing I mean, I know you're adding value. How do you know that it's connecting? How do you know that community is getting value, and is there feedback they're providing for you, or is there a way you're engaging them to get that?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're always tracking our ratings and reviews. Point 1, what are
Okay.
people are saying about that? We have a community Discord, which has around about 1,000 members where people can share ideas. When we're doing events, we're also asking for feedback. And we had some amazing feedback off the back of the first event we did with the Great Big Legal Offsite, and I'm going to be doing a lot more. So yeah, feedback is very important, but also then seeing it in credibility in terms of, are people actually going to give us a rating review? Are people going to shout about us? Are they going to be our sort of, raving fans? So yeah, really, really, really important. But our asking them the question as well, not second guessing on content. It's really important, at the moment, particularly with this AI revolution and everything else going on, that what we're actually producing is super relevant for what actually where the puck is going. It's the famous Wayne Gretzky quote, right? He doesn't skate to where the puck is, he skates where it's going. And that's what
Mhm.
we really try and focus on with our content, is making sure that the content is super relevant, not just now, but also hopefully moving forward, so people can really kind of go back to it and listen.
Gotcha, gotcha. And would you say that podcasting has been the greatest or easiest channel for you to get and build a community? Are there other things that you're doing outside of podcasting that have helped you build a following in a community that you have?
Yeah, I always say there's a WAV strategy, right? So I am rubbish at writing. WAV strategy is written audio video.
Okay.
I am rubbish at writing. I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not the great drafter. I'm not particularly good at quite a lot of things, but one thing I think where I potentially do well is communicating. And so through sort of verbal communication, I played to my strengths, in terms of
Mhm.
more audio. And obviously in recent times, then you switch to video. So absolutely, podcasting has been a game changer for me. But I would also say the real game changer for me, and I have to give credit to it because it's the best platform in the world, is LinkedIn. I've been
Yeah.
posting on LinkedIn every day for the last 5 years, and it's changed my life. I've been on the LinkedIn Creator Accelerator programs. I'm LinkedIn Top Voice. I've been invited to their offices. I've had some of the biggest brands in the world come around to me. I've had all of these opportunities, amazing people around the world. And I don't say that to brag. I say that because if you truly invest in a platform where your audience is, and LinkedIn is where most, I'm assuming, everyone listening to the show's audience is, it's
Yeah.
amazing what you can achieve in terms of actually potential for your career, your business, and whatever it may be that you're passionate about.
Yeah. And not to go down a rabbit hole with LinkedIn, but I feel like I was way ahead of the curve on LinkedIn. I mean, going back probably 16, 17 years, I was teaching LinkedIn and I'd have 50 people in a room and I'd say, how many of you were, actively on LinkedIn? And maybe like 5 hands would go up. And now today, if I asked, every hand would go up. Then, of
Yeah.
course, if I follow through with how many of you are actually getting business or building brand on LinkedIn, then most of the hands come down. So it's like one thing to be there; it's another to utilize it as a tool to build community and add value for people. Because it's like great for you to do a podcast, but if you're not using the magic of repurposing the transcripts for articles, repurposing the this for a video, right? You and I are talking, but we're on video. We can
Yeah.
repurpose that, as you said, and where are we putting that, and where, and so lawyers, I think, need to think about content creation. And one of the easiest ways to get it is by doing a podcast, because you're getting all of those, the written, the video, and the audio all in one shot. And you're having fun. I mean, I'm having fun every time I do an episode. I get happy. I just get into like a happy place where I'm talking to a friend, even if it's someone new. I feel like we're connecting, we're talking, we're sharing, having a shared experience, doing something together, and building value for a group. So I don't know, like, are there suggestions that you would give to lawyers who are thinking about a podcast but maybe haven't pulled the trigger yet?
Yeah, you don't need to overcomplicate it. This is the thing. Obviously you'll look around and you'll look at established shows. Steve, yours is hugely successful, very established, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of episodes. Incredible guests. Yeah, okay, you're not going to be that from day one, but you don't need to be. Think about your audience, and I was coming back to this, the topic of influence. So if you're a corporate M&A lawyer, for example, right? What is the biggest pain point that you're traditionally seeing within the industry? This is if you want to do a business podcast for, obviously if you're doing a hobby one or a personal one, totally different. But if you're
Sure.
looking to attract clients or attract people, then as a corporate M&A lawyer, what are the key things that people are asking about? Or what are your client requirements? Or what are the key things going on in that industry that are really going to be super valuable, not only now, but in the future? And by the way, a podcast could just be you. It doesn't always have to be a guest focus. So it could just be you
Right.
for five minutes. And by the way, lower consumption podcast lengths actually do better. So you could do 5 minutes a week in terms of, here's my top 5 corporate tips. If you're thinking about a business, talking to business owners, whoever your end clients are, or these are the structured problems we're structuring a business right now. So you can be really transfixed on that topic of influence and then just start.
You
And
could,
by the
but let
way,
me let me just stop you for 1 second. You could do 12 episodes in an hour. You could just
yeah,
record 12 5-minute clips, and now you have the next number of months. If you put one out a week, for example, you've got the next number of months handled. And I don't think lawyers realize like that it's probably more about the prep for that. Like, how do I prepare for that? And then I think they worry about the editing and the producing and all the stuff. And we're going to address that in a minute, but please continue.
Yeah, I mean, it can be as simple as, but I mean, but this is where AI is super useful now, right? You can download the PDF of someone off LinkedIn. You can put that into ChatGPT. You can go to their firm bio, whatever it may be, put that into ChatGPT, provide a framework prompt, provide 10 to 20 thought-provoking, interesting questions that are going to be tailored to this particular audience, focused on this, touching on this, and this, and it'll do it for you. It's
Yeah.
almost like it's too easy now for people not to kind of really utilize these tools to get good quality intel and information. The other thing, by the way, going back to the corporate M&A partner example, is invite your clients on. What a great way to give them
Yeah.
value add. Hey, I'll
Yeah.
shine a light on you. You can go do a shout out for your company. You're just about to do an IPO, or you're just about to do a joint venture, or you've just merged, or you've just sold out, or whatever it might be. Like, what a great way for you to then come and bring in that case study. And then you could say to them, well, what were you thinking about from a corporate lawyer perspective? How, and they could always give you a little bit of flattery. Actually, we really enjoyed your service, Susie or John, and what you did. So there's lots of ways you can slice and dice it. But I think just starting, keeping it super simple, and organically growing is a good thing. I definitely think you need to have a video element now, though, because the YouTube is just, you've got to be there.
Yeah.
I think because people want to see, and I think we're speaking offline now. Consumption of content is so high, but also people's attention spans are so low. So, you've got to be able to create this micro content that's really good for these platforms on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, etc., because
Yeah.
that's really where people are going to consume your content. And so if you can get used to talking in sound bites and doing good clips, then you'll do really, really well.
Yeah. And the other thing is it can be intimidating to think about creating something on Zoom, for example, and then the editing and the production and where does it go and how do you get the transcript and all that. Hire a production team. I've been using Turnkey Podcast out of LA for, I don't know, since the day one. Like I didn't try this on my own. And the investment is nominal in comparison to the return on that investment. Jeremy Weiss in my neighborhood here in Chicago is great. They're everywhere. So think about the idea that you could find someone to help set it up for you, help create the account, help set up your logo, whatever you need, your background, whatever it is that you want to do, that you don't have to do that by yourself. There's lots of people that can walk you through how to do it and then keep you on track to actually produce content on a regular basis. So you could, because I think, yeah, right, Rob, you got to stay consistent with it.
Yeah, and you can set up scheduling links and things like that to make sure that people can easily just book into your show, which obviously I know you do, Steve, as well. Yeah, you do have to be super consistent. But I think podcasting is, again, people might be thinking, yeah, but actually, what's the ROI, right? They'll be like, okay, it's nominal cost, but it's still my time. I charge $1,000 or $500 an hour. It's still going to cost me, this to do that, or I need to get my marketing team involved. I say, forget the ROI narrative. Think of the COI narrative, the cost of opportunity, the cost of inaction, not the return on investment, the cost of inaction. What's the cost of inaction to someone else? Let's say there's another corporate lawyer that goes and sets up that podcast, does that, and it becomes one of the biggest branded podcasts ever. And you were just so transfixed on the now and the today and the ROI that actually your COI is so high. And actually, they've then got really good inbound leads coming from that. They've built their own brand. They've turned it into a real community, and they're really modern. They're really meeting their clients where they're at, and future clients, and where that generation's above, beneath them are coming through. So I think really think of the cost in action of not doing anything. And again, the magic you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding. I think that links nicely to the COI.
I mean, think about, yeah, forget everything about content, forget everything about return on investment. The one of the top things that I'm going to put out there for everybody is the new relationships I've developed. I would never would have met you, Rob, if we
Yeah.
hadn't swapped podcasts and done that type of thing. And I just think about the 400 and whatever 30 episodes I've done, the people I've met. I'm running a legal tech. I want to invite you to that, but I'm running like a legal tech roundtable now with the legal tech people that I've had on my show because they want to talk and I'm just kind of sitting back and kind of hosting. But like all of these brilliant people, these brilliant rainmaking lawyers, these brilliant legal experts like yourself, I never would have met. And
Yeah.
the referral opportunity is even secondary in some ways to just the relationship and the fun and just the ability to refer and the ability to have this big network that adds value to your clients in your life. And my life feels more fulfilled having done this podcast, certainly more than the books I've written. and I'm happy about the books I've written. I'm happy about the articles and the publishing I've done. But that's dry, boring, and not uninteresting to me compared to I'm a relationship guy, right? So this is what I love.
And I think the key, well, there's 2 points I would mention. There's nothing stronger than a human connection. I talk a lot about it's no longer B2B, B2C, and I may have mentioned this before on the show. It's H2H. It's human to human connection. And what a great way to connect with someone over a podcast, allowing them to share their story, their insights. You shine a light on them. You really look after them. I think that's great. The other key thing that I think really super boosts your brand and opportunity with podcast is I'm sat here over in England. You're sat there in America. You're going to share this with your audience in America. My brand is exponentially going to increase for giving you an hour of my time coming on your show. Your brand is going to exponentially increase because I'm going to share this with my community over here in the UK. It's a great two-way value exchange. We're bringing new audience. So again, let's say you're a corporate lawyer and you're looking to try and attract more clients in France, or it might be in wherever. If you bring on a guest within that jurisdiction and they've got a good audience or a good message, then you're instantly breaking down doors, and it's a good business development strategy.
Yeah. And you don't have to find the guests. I mean, you can start off finding the guests, but I'm getting, I'll say 2 to 5 inquiries a week for
Yeah.
people that want to be on my show. And that could be directly from the lawyers that want to get on the show, or it can be from, there's like hundreds of, maybe thousands of like podcast PR companies now that have come out of the woodwork to essentially like represent lawyers and legal experts to get them on different shows. And here's the funny thing too, like if they hit me up, it's like, hi, comma, and so my name isn't there. We love your
Yeah.
show, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like you can tell it's like fill in the blank here. And then it's like, and then they give me like 3 legal topics, estate planning, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, okay, so this person doesn't know my show. They don't know
Yeah.
it's about legal growth, whatever. And I just respond and go, you might want to check out the show and maybe add my name in there if you're gonna, unless you're a
So,
bot.
can I give a really good strategy for lawyers that are looking to get onto
Oh, that's
podcasts?
great. Yes.
Maybe you kind of want to start your own. By the way, the best tip I can give you before starting your own is be a guest on other people's podcasts. So
100%.
not putting
100%.
Steve on the spot, but if you and this is how I would write to Steve. I wanted to get on his show, by the way. You should go on Steve's show because he's already got an engaged audience. He's got a huge community. He's a thought leader. He's trusted. He's done 430 episodes. So before you launch your own show, if Steve then shares your show, you can then start bouncing some of Steve's audience back into yours. But you don't write to Steve like that. Hi, you say, hi, Steve. By the way, just before I jump in, I've just left you 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and I've left you a review because your episode with Rob Hanna about podcasting insights, I've learned 2 or 3 incredible things that have actually really inspired me to want to start my own podcasting. It's incredible that you've done 430 episodes. I love your content. I love your brand. This is where this is the topic I think will be valuable to your audience in terms of I know your sweet spot when it comes to business development. What I'm going to do for you as a guest is I'm going to come on and share this content, but post that, I understand the importance of distribution. I'm going to share this to my 5,000 followers. I'm also going to share it with my internal marketing team within my law firm to make sure this is distributed out. And I'm going to make sure I repurpose this for myself and tag you in all the backlinks. So if you're interested, please let me know.
Yeah.
What a value exchange.
Yeah.
What a sucker punch.
What am I not going to respond to that? Of course I'm going to respond to that. I'm very enthusiastic about meeting new people and getting them on my show if they have value to add. Obviously, if they're complimentary, that doesn't hurt, right? I mean, it's a little ego stroke here and there doesn't hurt. But be yourself, be honest, be real, and actually listen to the show and if
Give
it's
a
terrible,
specific.
yeah, I
Specific
mean, if
is
it's a terrible
terrific,
show,
right?
maybe don't say anything, but but if it's a great show and you got value, and again, if you're starting a podcast, you know, offer to put podcast people like me and Rob and others on your show because it's going to help you grow your brand, but also figure out how to help them, figure out how to add value, and be a great guest, right? Really, really share a lot of wisdom that's going to be valuable for that audience. And that puts everybody, right, all, was it rising tides all raise all ships? What's that saying?
Yeah, lift all boats. Yeah,
Lift all
absolutely.
boats. Yeah.
And I think the other key thing is maybe some people don't want to do the outreach email. I get it. Well, here's another indirect strategy. Pick up an episode of Steve's that you've enjoyed, do a LinkedIn post about it, what you learned from it, what you enjoyed from it, tag Steve, tag the guest,
Yeah.
Ask people for engagement. What are your thoughts on this? Steve's going to jump in on that post and say, thank you so much for sharing my episode. Really enjoyed it. Great. Bang. Straight into his direct message then from there. Steve,
Yep.
thanks so much. You've really inspired me. You've led with value, right? You're sharing Steve's episode. You're sharing his podcast, but you're not just doing like, oh, I like this. You're offering something that's valuable that builds on Steve's brand, but also shows that you're interested in him and what he has to say. You're more likely to then jump into getting a podcast spot off the back of that.
Yeah. Well, I started off joking that this was going to be the worst interview. And of course, I was joking because I knew right away it was going to be one of the best interviews. I mean, folks, listen up. Rob is the real deal. He's given you gem after gem after gem. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up with our game-changing book. Now, this is interesting because I'm not a huge legal, I mean, I'm dangerous in legal tech, but I'm not like brilliant like a lot of these guys I have on the show and gals I have on the show. The one there's a book that came out called Legal Operations in the Age of AI and Data.
Yep.
Take
And
30
it's
seconds on that book because that's something not everybody's going to pick up, but I think it's interesting to hear about.
Yeah, it was a huge collaboration across 30 or 40 legal professionals around the world. It's actually edited by my good friend Olga Mack, who some of you may know. And it touches on all the different areas of the legal profession, from actually how do you use legal technology within your law firm, through to people, a big people part of it. So, how do you ensure through legal technology and legal design that you're actually managing your people correctly, you're keeping them inspired, you're keeping them motivated, through to a whole host of different topics. But it's all about looking forwards, and it's a really good Bible because it's picking wisdom of people who are practicing now, who have done it, who have been
Mm-hmm.
there, who are either
Mm-hmm.
running their firms, who are adopting it. So yeah, go check it out. Legal Operations in the Age of AI and Data. We all know data is the new gold, and AI is not a once in a revolution opportunity, it's a once in a species opportunity.
Mm.
So this is the time to really get educated and go and dive into it.
Wow, fantastic, man. Wrapping up, I want to thank our sponsors, of course, Rankings.io, helping those personal injury lawyers get leads. And of course, Rainmaker Roundtable with Fretzin. I've been running that for now 4 years. If you're a Rainmaker managing partner and you want to get off your proverbial island and hang out with other brilliant, very ambitious attorneys that are all goal oriented, this is the place to be. We're not just putzing around. We actually all have goals that we're holding each other accountable to and talking shop on a regular basis. And I am on the ticket as a coach for that group and for the members. So check that out on my website, fretzin.com. And Rob, if people want to get in touch with you, let's give a plug for the podcast. Let's give a plug for your business, and let's give out the digits.
Yeah, sure. Best place to reach me is on LinkedIn. It's just Robert Hanna. You can find me there. Feel free to go and check out the Legally Speaking podcast, sponsored by Clio. We are on Apple, Spotify, you name it, good pods. We're everywhere you listen to your podcast. It's an interesting show. It's all around, the world of law and more. And by the way, I'm going to be in the US. So if any of your US people are planning on going to ClioCon, which is one of the largest legal tech conferences in the world, I'm going to be in Austin, Texas from the 7th till 9th of October. So if anyone wants to come along, I'm going to be live podcasting there. If you mention you're a fan of Steve's show, I'll make sure I'll give you a 5-minute interview there live.
Okay. Wow. All right. Well, listen, head down to Austin. I'm actually heading down there for winter break with my family on a vacation. So, but
Oh, nice.
yeah. But ClioCon sounds like a load of fun, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of great value there. Thanks, Rob, man. I just think the world of you, man. We always have a great conversation, and I just appreciate you coming back on the show and sharing your wisdom as you have so much of it.
Yeah, no, thanks, Steve. I really, really appreciate it. And yeah, looking forward to more collaborations in the future.
Yes. All right. Fantastic. And thank you, everybody, for spending time on the Be That Lawyer with Fretzin podcast. Just help, every single episode, just try to pull one or two things out of it that's going to benefit you. Just an idea, a tactical, actionable thing that you can do. And I know it isn't easy, but it's important. And so you want to make sure you focus on growing that community, growing that law practice, and living the dream. So take care, everybody. Be safe, be well. We will talk again very soon.